I'm a big brave dog.
A mere Reverend has decided to enter into the presence of the eternal Cthulhu. Tell me, mortal, why are you here?
Huh? What? Wait, where am I? I feel like I just woke up from a dream. The last thing I remember, there were a bunch of zombies carrying heads and angry fellows whose suits were way too small on them. Like seriously, I couldn't tell if the screams of agony were coming from the helpless victims or the buttons on their suits.
You are but a grain of sand in comparison to my power. Now bow before me, and maybe I will end your miserable little existence.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop you right there, Tentacles.
Tentacles, I will end you right here, you insufferable.
I too have a power that you can't begin to fathom.
And what might that be, little cockroach?
Oh, it's the power of the checkpoint.
No!
Our journey begins in the main menu, where I spend an inordinate amount of time listening to the main menu music. This frickin' menu music is a banger, dude. I love it. Never mind playing the game, I'm just gonna sit here and listen. From the jump, I will say that the developer Bite Barrel and Tim Fialka, who composed the soundtrack, absolutely nailed it. In fact, I'm thinking about contacting Tim to write a heavy metal soundtrack for my life as well. Though I guess if I'm honest, a sick heavy metal soundtrack won't be nearly as effective when all I'm doing is drinking coffee and sitting with the elderly. Anyway, the story begins with some exposition by the main character, Priest, as he informs us that a family member, Cousin Lewis, has requested his help as some strange things are afoot in the city of Pestisville. According to Lewis, many people have gone missing, some strange voices are filling the air, and panic rages on in the city. Upon his arrival, Priest immediately noticed that the city is as empty as a thoughts and prayers comment on a Facebook post. Don't get mad at me, get mad at the book of James. Moving on, Priest goes to the place where he's supposed to meet his cousin Lewis, but cousin Lewis is nowhere to be found. In the silence of this empty room, Priest begins to hear footsteps in the corridor outside. When it was finally time for me to assume control of the character, I was overjoyed to see the revolver waiting on me. It is an incredibly important part of any Reverend's uniform, because nothing says love your neighbor like a .357 Magnum round. I also took the time to check out all of the lore scattered around the room, and after I felt adequately caught up on what was happening, I went out the door and into the chaos, but not before I gave myself a little pep talk. That's a handsome fella right there. In the hallway, I was introduced to one of the many different types of enemies. This poor zombie would find out real quick that a pastor with a pistol makes for a hard-to-eat target, especially when that pistol can involuntarily remove said zombie's noggin, which it did in glorious fashion. This leads me to something that I wanted to talk about with Forgive Me Father. Like I said a few moments ago, there are many different types of enemies that will be encountered throughout the story. Bite Barrel gave each enemy its own mechanic and special way of making your life a little more difficult. In fact, not long into this first level, I came across zombies carrying heads, and it wasn't just a creative art decision to add to the character model. It was a whole new mechanic. The head that it was carrying was actually its spare head, and it would promptly place that spare head upon its neck should a certain Reverend forcefully remove the original one. I, for one, thought that was incredibly clever. Another mechanic I truly enjoyed was the madness meter attached to the player character. The madness meter slowly fills as you dispatch enemies or drink the liquor bottles that are laying around, and as it grows, you begin to do more damage to enemies, as well as receive less damage from the enemies. And you know that you've gotten adequately mad when your screen turns completely gray. The madness meter adds a really fun reason to go absolutely crazy, spreading lead judgment on all of the enemies. Nice. I get to go mad by drinking alcohol and shooting everything. That's just real. Traveling through the level, one of the first things I had to do was give myself a rock solid alibi in case someone came after me for putting down zombies for a permanent nap. It was self-defense, everybody saw it. And then found out the hard way the keys would yet again be necessary to progress. You need to have a key. Dadgummit, didn't bring my priestly lockpicks. In my journey through the attic level, I would come across the second weapon in my arsenal, the shotgun, and buddy, was this one of my favorites through all the playthrough. And it got even better once I was able to upgrade it. Oh yeah, for those that enjoy a leveling and upgrade system, Forgive Me Father has that, and it's quite nice. Every weapon in the game, including your starting knife, has the ability to be upgraded, and something that I truly enjoyed was that the upgrades to the weapons often resulted in an appearance change as well. It really made spending the level up point feel a lot more rewarding when I can visually see the changes on the weapons as opposed to a flat damage increase that takes place behind the scenes. Back to my own journey through the game. I made a new friend a little ways into the first level, who honestly became my best friend, because I had to reload checkpoints more than I want to admit. I also gave him a name. I will call you Jebediah. Bidding adieu to Jeb, I went on my merry way through the rest of the level, and I found my lantern, which helped me see in the spooky, scary, dark places. In time, I would enter into the final room where Bite Barrel did me a bamboozle. I gotta look through all the boxes. What? After I started breathing again, I would make my way through the level exit and on to level 2. In level 2, Garden, I played a rousing game of Train the Zombies. Y'all don't stand a chance, I played Nazi zombies. In level 3, Streets, I came across the first of 4 ability items available to Priest, the Crucifix, and I will say that this ability item saw frequent use because for some reason I made a habit of running face first into balls. Green, orange, tentacle covered, you name it. For informational purposes, all 4 abilities depend on your madness meter, so if you find yourself playing this game, go mad. To help with that madness, I also found on level 3 the Tommy gun, and it frickin' rocks. I had a blast throwing lead at high rounds per second. Like, I'm being serious, I really enjoyed it. And I also celebrated finding this machine gun. Ooh, a Tommy gun! I found the machine gun this time. All it took was for it to be directly in front of my face in a place I have to go through. Level 4, Rooftops, took me from running through the Pestisville streets to hopping across rooftop like some holy Assassin's Creed character, although I did go out the way of Gwen Stacy at least once. Oh. Dang it. While I was playing Parkour Preacher Man in level 4, I also took the time to upgrade my shotgun. Look how cool it is now. My pistol also received an upgrade, though it's not as flashy, and I gained access to the MP18, as well as the Aspergillum stun ability. Gonna show these enemies the business end of my mop. Moving into level 5, Harbor, I was greeted with a fishy smell. After figuring out that it smelled quite similar to Kenneth Copeland's theology, I pressed on, only to have exploding fish chucked at me by strange men. I also found the Necronomicon, though I didn't see any fellows with chainsaw hands running around nearby. And with this interesting bit of reading material, I now had the ability to become invincible for a time. I also got my hands on a secret weapon with a pretty metal name. This looks very secrety. The Tormentor. Look at me, Jiffy. I found a secret weapon. On my way out of the level, I said goodbye to another new friend. You're Terry. Bye, Terry. And journeyed on. Level 6, Hospital, was honestly my favorite in terms of level atmosphere. It also really helps that it emphasizes the priest's descent into madness as he has found himself in a mental hospital. I mean, he arrived in the hospital and immediately started yelling, "Lewis! Lewis!" While in this twisted place, I made fun of an enemy. He blew himself up with his own fish. What an idiot. Ran into some Forgive Me Father necromorphs. Oh, grotesque. Some like tentacled necromorphs going on. And questioned Jebediah's ability to be everywhere at once. Jebediah, how do you get in the hospital? In fact, how do you get anywhere? Turns out Jebediah is actually an eldritch monster. It's himself. And after being chased by a wall of gore and flames in a scene reminiscent of Indiana Jones, I happily turned in my discharge papers and continued on my way, right into the first boss. Level 7, Catharsis. This big boy was a sight to behold, sporting a face that only a mother could love. This boss had me hopping and shooting and hopping some more. Honestly, he seemed very angry, which was evident by the fact that he was shooting eyeballs at me the entire time, as well as laying landmines. And it's also quite ironic that his name is Catharsis, which hails from the Greek word catharsis with a K. That is literally defined as the process of relieving negative emotion. And trust me, it didn't get any less angry in the time that it took me to defeat it. So, once Catharsis had been relieved of his negative emotions via gunfire, I ran as fast as I could to get out of this hellish hospital and on to Act 2. The first level of Act 2 was a spooky graveyard, and boy was it full of enemies. In fact, one of the first things I did was leave a Yelp review concerning the conditions of this graveyard. Yeah, I'd have to rate this cemetery like a 1 out of 10. Simply because it's not clean, there's blood everywhere, the bodies are up and running around like they shouldn't be. You know, most cemeteries are really good about keeping the bodies where they're supposed to be. This one sucks. Use my adept Reverend senses to detect one of the secret areas. I picked up a scent. There's a secret around here somewhere. Sniffed it out. Riff cannot finish the video. He actually caused himself to hyperventilate trying to do that sniffing bit. I also recruited some of the local residents to help me review the pistol. How did that feel? Needless to say, the reviews are kind of mind-blowing.
Boo! You stink!
Of course, no stroll through the zombie-infested graveyard is complete without a killer soundtrack, sung by yours truly. And I would walk 500 miles, and I would walk 500 more. Da da da. In true Rev fashion, I walked right into an ambush, and things got crazy. However, as if he were actually sitting behind me, Patches O'Houlihan reminded me that to grasp victory in moments like this, I must take this situation and
Pump it into submission.
victory now mine, I walked on to the next part of the story. In Act 2, Level 3 Catacombs, I received my final ability item, the Medallion, that when activated, gives me unlimited ammo. I also played hopscotch over lava, which was incredibly stressful. Also, I have never known any catacombs to have lava in them, so there went my immersion. Anyway, myself and my totally immersive weapons and abilities soon found ourselves in the swamps of Act 2, Level 4, the Wetlands. Here, I would find my next weapon, a harpoon gun, which would become another one of my favorites due to how powerful it was. My journey would lead me through the mountains, the ruins, right into the second big boss fight. This boss fight was rough, having to juggle fighting off the boss's attacks, the minions that had spawned, and clearing these structures called shield altars. Until I cleared those, my weapons were about as effective as shooting a Nerf gun at a grizzly bear. Except that grizzly bear can shoot pre-seeking projectiles and spawn laser walls from its hind end. Yet, with grit and determination, I barely defeated Aziz and went on my merry way. However, I would soon find out that Lewis had sadly been killed by the cult bent on bringing their deity into the world, though this rescue mission soon turned into the quest of vengeance, as a somber image of the priest holding his slain family member with the words, "You won't rest until everyone is dead," showing on the screen. There's honestly a whole lot more to that cutscene, but I don't want to spoil it all for you. Will the priest exact vengeance upon his uncle's murderers? Find out after this brief commercial break. In the quaint town of Pestisville, everything is perfect. The neighbors are friendly, and the atmosphere just oozes the American dream. However, the supernatural would soon befall this picturesque city, as an unlikely visitor arrived, with his tentacles in tow. Strange things begin to happen as our otherworldly visitor begins laying tentacles upon the citizens of this town. What sort of shenanigans unfurl, you ask? Find out in the newest episode of Touched by a Tentacle, airing exclusively on Rev Plays Games. Like and subscribe, you silly gooses. Act 3 opens up in the Lower Forest, a dark and dreary place, filled to the brim with cultists that constantly hunt you down in an effort to sacrifice you, which I promptly responded. Sacrifice this. This entire level had me feeling like Frankenstein's monster running away from pitchfork-wielding psychos. But you know what else would be psychotic? Me trying to go through 3 more acts like this. So buckle up, because we're hitting the fast forward button. 3 level 2 cornfield, the children of the corn attacked me, I got the Thundernomicon, a big tentacle gun exploded goodness, and I rode a windmill. Act 3 level 3 gutter, this happened. Yeah, what you have here is a horrible case of hanging bacon. Yeah, so in order to fix this, the best thing you can do is to remove the hooks from the ceiling. Duh. Oh, and I almost got my priestly derriere sawed off. Fun. Act 3 level 4 put me in the sewers, it stunk. Act 3 level 5 was a treatment plant. I got treated to multiple ambushes and a new enemy dual-wielding guns. Act 3 level 6 was a super secret, super scary lab that introduced 2 new nightmares into the enemy pool. I also got the energy booster weapon, Call Me Thor now. And this level had a really cool sequence where stuff started to break out of the test tubes and it was quite scary. Act 3 level 7 was a factory. It had big vats of molten metal. It was hot and not in the good way. Act 3 level 8 was underwater. I cosplayed as a bubble guppy and harpooned walking meatballs. After that came the boss fight with a big ugly fish. And let me tell you, I had a lot of trouble with this one too. You see, I struggle to pay attention to one thing at a time, much less dodge minions, pulse waves, water balls, and oh, did I mention the arena moved? Yeah, that big ugly fish was no joke. Anyways, big boy fish eventually got filleted, and I made my way to the next act. I got to start Act 4 on a boat, then I visited Walter White's favorite place in the Crystal Cave, I got stared at by big angry cubes in the cultist hideout, played Minecraft in the mines level, and finally got to fight the boss, Glitch, which I'm pretty sure got a hold of all the crystal from the crystal caves, because 99% of the footage from this fight is me missing this boss completely with every weapon because he's so fast. I also forgot about my stun lock ability, but what can I say? Act 5 was a fever dream the entire way through. The City of Ancients level introduced an adorable puffball that kamikazed you after it took down its health, and it had a puzzle mechanic that made me want to massage my forehead with a cinder block. The Abyss level became the first episode of Reverend in Space, and honestly, pretty good level. Lots of rock hopping. The Dimensional Portals level was an awesome experience and a really cool way to unlock the ability to progress to the final boss fight in the game. It legit makes you into a priestly Doctor Strange, jumping through dimensional portals and fighting in dimensions similar to the previous levels you have played. After completing all the portals, well, it was time for the final showdown between man and eldritch being. Old Cthulhu himself was a sight to behold, and boy did he pack a punch. Every single one of his attacks would punish me severely. He had a ground pound move that you had to time the jump just right to avoid being damaged. All the while, a danger blob followed you around the arena, and Tentacle Boy rained chaos down on your head. To make matters worse, eventually lasers would shoot across the ground and made it so that I couldn't stay still. Not that I'd want to anyway. However, I would soon best the eldritch horror, and a hard-fought victory was mine. But was it truly a victory? Well, guess you'll have to play it for yourself to find out. I can't give you all the spoilers. All in all, I had a great time with Forgive Me Father. The enemy mechanics, the level design, and the killer soundtrack really left me speechless. And the somber story of a priest struggling with his faith and descending into madness was really powerful as well. So kudos to Bite Barrel for a great Lovecraftian boomer shooter experience. If you like what you saw, hit that like button. And if you didn't like it, dislike it. Then tell everyone you know, your mama, your Grammy, your cousins, to come watch the entirety of this video and dislike it. Then tell them to subscribe so that they can do the same on all my future videos. Anyway, remember that you are loved, and until next time, see ya.